Hello, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. So Owen Farrell will be playing for England in this Six Nations. It kicks off for England at Twickenham against Scotland on the 4th of February. He's been given a 4-game ban, which we expect to be reduced to 3 games after he takes part in a World Rugby coaching course. I'm going to get into that in this video and how ridiculous that is. A little bit about the disciplinary process as well, but then also what does it mean for England looking ahead to their first game against Scotland. Steve Borthwick names his squad on Monday. That's going to be very, very interesting as well. So if you are new here, please do subscribe to the channel. I am now back in the UK after holiday in Australia, so I'm going to be uploading more regularly, particularly around the Six Nations. A lot of content coming your way there. And with anything regarding Owen Farrell, people always have a big opinion on it. It always splits the room. So drop a comment down below on everything I get into in this video, and let's get into it. So Owen Farrell has received a 4-game ban. That's for his tackle in Saracens' match against Gloucester on the Gloucester player Jack Clement. Wasn't picked up at the time. Farrell went on to kick the winning drop goal in that game, but it was a high shot, which when it's Owen Farrell as well, always gets a lot more attention on it because of his previous track record. So it went in as a kind of mid-length ban. It was reduced from 6 weeks to 4 weeks because of various mitigating factors. I'll mention some of those in just a few moments. And then that 4 weeks will be reduced to 3 weeks if he completes a World Rugby coaching intervention course. I'm going to get onto that as well, believe me, because that is ridiculous, but we're used to hearing about them by now. And there is some confusion over what that third game is going to be. They've got 2 games in Europe, then a game against Bristol in the Premiership. That means 3 games. He should be able to face Scotland at Twickenham, 4th of February, the start of the Six Nations, which is a game I'm hoping to be at. But firstly, that World Rugby intervention course, because it's worth speaking about this. We see it all the time, don't we, in these disciplinary processes where if the player completes this course, it's like a speed awareness course, essentially. If the player completes this course, therefore their ban gets reduced. And I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? These are professional rugby players who have the highest quality of coaching in the world, but if they complete this course, they get a week taken off their ban. I personally don't see what it's doing other than reducing bans for players. I don't think it's changing behaviour, and I think it seems to me to be utterly ridiculous. I heard a number of people say this as well. I think the general sentiment towards these courses is, what do they actually do? What's the point in them? But again, I just think it highlights it's utterly ridiculous. It's a bit of a joke. Get rid of those courses. I don't think it makes any difference to the players. It simply means that they can reduce their bans. I also mentioned some of the other things for what players get mitigation for. It was said in the release of, when they said what the ban was for Owen Farrell, that they got some mitigating factors for exemplary behaviour during the disciplinary process, during the hearing, which is an independent hearing overseen by someone in the legal profession. But exemplary behaviour, again, these are professional rugby players, they're adults. The idea that they might not have exemplary behaviour, that they get their ban reduced because of exemplary behaviour, again, just seems ridiculous to me. Sure, if someone's kicking up a stink and making a real fuss in a process and hindering that process, then you can increase the ban. But the idea of reducing it, or that being considered a mitigating factor amongst adult men, it's ridiculous to me, again. So I think there's some issues around that. I mentioned as well the major confusion for this about what the third game will be. So as I say, Saracens have 2 weeks coming up of European matches. Then their third game is going to be at the end of January against Bristol in the Premiership. And then that 4th would then be England's first game against Scotland. So those are the 3 games. That kind of makes sense. But it also said in this review that they need to be meaningful games. And if Owen Farrell is included in Steve Borthwick's England squad for the Six Nations on Monday, he wouldn't normally be released back to Saracens for that Bristol game the week before the start of the Six Nations. So whether that should count as the third game or not is up for debate. I think there have been players before, Kyle Sinclair, one of them I saw in the Times today. There's been this issue before in this discussion before, but I think, again, it's just going to highlight probably ways you can get around that disciplinary process. It will be interesting as well if he is included in the England squad, whether they don't include him, because then he isn't part of the squad, he's part of the Saracens squad. Those 3 games will count without any sort of argument, but I suspect he will be in that squad. He's so key for England, and therefore, it just is going to create that sort of conversation of whether it is right for him to be able to count the Bristol game as one of the 3 that he misses, when Saracens were never going to release him England were never going to release him back to Saracens if he's part of that England squad before the Six Nations. Normally they might release players if they think they need game time. That's not going to be the case with Owen Farrell. So it just creates a bit of a headline as well for Steve Borthwick just before announcing his new England squad, his first England squad of his tenure. Probably the sort of headache that he doesn't necessarily want to deal with, of whether it's right or wrong to include Owen Farrell. I guess those are the rules. Steve Borthwick can select him. Owen Farrell can have those 3 games as the ones he misses and hopefully go in fresh to the Six Nations. But that will be a talking point over the next, what have we got, sort of 4 or 5 days or so for that England squad. What does this, though, mean for England as well is an interesting thing to consider. Owen Farrell, whenever I do videos on this, and particularly England squads, there's always some people that comment saying that Farrell's past it, he needs to be dropped, he's a better fly half than he is a centre. For me, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think some of England's best performances in the Eddie Jones era came when it was George Ford at 10 and Owen Farrell at inside centre. That's how it was for the Six Nations Grand Slam they did. That was how it was when they went to Australia and won 3-0. And that was how it was when England got to the final of the World Cup in 2019. So the argument that Owen Farrell, first of all, shouldn't be in the England team, and second of all, shouldn't be at inside centre, doesn't really stack up for me. I think he's an utterly brilliant rugby player for England on a consistent basis. He should be in the team, and I don't mind him at inside centre at all. So I expect that he will line up at inside centre for England. He might captain the team. Who knows? We'll wait and see what Steve Borthwick decides there. So what does it mean for the fly half berth? I think we could well be seeing the Marcus Smith, Owen Farrell axis be given more time. New attack coach coming in for the Six Nations in Nick Evans, a video I did previously on this channel. He knows Marcus Smith very, very well, and he is hoping to add an element of clarity heading into the Six Nations. So hopefully the attack does start to look like a little bit of a better drilled machine going into that, and maybe that Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell access, which will be given more time, will actually be able to start see click a little bit more than we have done previously. So I know a lot of people aren't going to want to see that, but I think it is worth giving it a little bit more time. Owen Farrell will be included, and I imagine it will be Marcus Smith at 10. I think eventually we'll see George Ford come back into the squad, but he hasn't played for Sale, hasn't played since the Premiership final. He needs to probably be given a little bit more time. So that's kind of my general thoughts on it. The disciplinary process, areas for mitigation, I think is a massive issue. And Owen Farrell, I think we will see him line up at inside centre for England in the Six Nations. I will do more videos on England squad selection. I'll select my squad in the next few days and do a video on that. I'm hoping to be at Twickenham for Steve Borthwick's press conference as he looks ahead to his first tenure, his first games as England coach when he announces that squad on Monday. So I'll do a video as well reacting to the squad. But we're back, hopefully more regular content on this channel. As always, I appreciate the support. And as always, let me know what you think in the comments down below on everything I went through in this video. Subscribe if you are new here, and I'll see you in the next one.